Welcome to episode 2 of the Playdown podcast. We are here in my backyard having a little fun, talking some golf. We're going to go over the U.S. Open. I would like to start the episode, though, kind of apologizing for episode 1. The camera was a little subpar, and as was the audio. But we figured we'd try to do it live. It is. It was a little rough. So we apologize for that. Bear with us. Keep watching. We will we'll get the kinks out and we'll make a better product for you, I promise. Well, we are here to discuss the U.S. Open at Oakmont. Tom, I'm going to let you kind of take it off. You were there. So how was it? Was the carnage real?
It definitely was real, Scooter. I mean, we were there. My brother and I were there on Saturday and Sunday. Daughter joined us on Father's Day on Sunday as well. The course was, everyone knows how difficult the course was. There was a lot of press around it, but when you're there, even navigating the course as a spectator could be a bit challenging, right? It was so wet and thick that they were closing passageways to kind of get across some of the holes. It took us probably half the day just to find the right spots to be able to watch the golf, because that's really what we enjoy doing there. We don't really want to chase the more popular players. We like to find spots on the course and be able to see some of the real golf of all the golfers coming through. So that was something we figured out for Saturday afternoon. Sunday was fantastic. Other than, of course, the rain that came on, and that created another element, about an hour and a half delay. We wound up leaving at that point and watching the finals out of a bar, because it was pouring and we weren't even sure they were going to be able to finish it. And it really, I don't know that it was super fair to the players. And a couple of the players really got burned with the conditions, and yet it was a very exciting finish. And again, being there kind of early on and being able to watch all the golfers come through was where what I enjoyed most. The other thing I guess I would say about it is there's been a lot of press around just how difficult the course was, and should they had to play under those type of conditions. It was fun to watch the golfers and the challenge that they had, but also the execution of some of the shots out of the rough. The way they had to putt the ball to make sure they were putting defensively enough to try to preserve a 2-putt. And it was really an unbelievable test. So it was a great experience. And, the one final moment I would say that was probably from an entertainment standpoint, and yet at the same time, it felt like you're always going to get one of those fans at these things. Mm-hmm. Jordan Spieth had, hit his second shot just short of the green, maybe had 80 to 90 yards in, put that to, 20, 25 feet. He ran the first putt by. He takes a long time to set his putts up. So everything he did took a long time. So now he went by the hole. He goes through the same process, sets up the putt, misses the comebacker, goes through it a third time and horseshoes the ball out. And it went from a 4-foot putt to a 6-foot putt. And one of the spectators in the stands yelled, "That's no gimme, Jordan." And the caddy yelled back at him. And I was like, holy smokes, the carnage of the courses. The fan was, it was inappropriate. And Jordan wound up making that 4th putt, and I think birdieing either the next hole or the hole after. So it was fairly, I'd say, entertaining, and at the same time, the definition of knucklehead definitely was.
Must be a Steelers fan.
Yeah, it could have been.
So, favorite moment?
To me, actually, the favorite moment of the tournament, I think for everybody, other than, what happened at the end with Spawn making that great putt down the stretch, was some of the stuff that happened on Saturday. Saturday, there was intermittent rain. The course softened up a bit. And there was some really good golf by Adam Scott and Sam Burns in the afternoon. And I just felt like, watching some of these golfers make a charge on moving day was a lot of fun. And they almost had kind of conquered the course a bit late in the day on Saturday. So that's what I would say. You could see the golf improve on Saturday and the golfers kind of getting into it. I think you got some stats that are going to prove that Saturday might have been the best
My favorite moment though was JJ Small. That putt on 18. It was the longest putt made all 4 rounds by everyone. It was the only putt that was over 60 feet that was holed out, and it was just. And did you notice the putter he had?
I did not actually.
He has a Lab DF3.
Oh, does he?
Yes, he does. And guess who else has a Lab DF3? Yours truly. So, pretty great moment there. Biggest surprise. I mean, I think you have to. It starts and ends for me with Bryson. Him not making the cut was my biggest surprise.
Yeah, I think mine was Shane Lowry. Everybody who paid attention to some of the picks I liked, and I think a lot of the experts really liked him. He's been playing well. He didn't make the cut. Not only didn't he not make the cut, he was 17 over. And it got to the point on Friday, I was listening to it while I was driving to Pittsburgh, where he actually picked up his ball without marking it.
Yes.
You know, at that point, if a pro does that, they've checked out.
They're mentally spent.
So to have him be at 17 over like that, a lot of people might say, it was some of these other golfers that missed the cut, but the way he missed the cut and how horrible he played for him, for his standards, was really kind of shocking to me. And I think tough conditions generally favor golfers like him, right?
You would think, right?
Yeah.
They're used to link style. They're used to tough conditions, windy, rain. You would think, but let's talk about the winning score real quick. So you actually called the winning score in our first episode one at -1. -1 being 279 strokes. The bet DraftKings was 278.5, which you actually knew that, and I did take the over, and I did win that one. Did you also?
I actually did not bet that because it was so close to the line. I just sort of
And we also talked about the cut line. You and I both liked +8, as did Vegas. They actually had +8 as the lowest odds. However, it came in at +7. I went with +7 because there's a little bit more juice on the line. So I got a lucky win there. You already mentioned the weather and the carnage and just where I think one of the surprises with Friday for me was Phil. So Phil's sitting there at +4, well inside the cut line with, I think, 5 holes to go. And he ended up with +8 and missed the cut.
Yeah. It went quick, though. I mean, even though that's surprising, it can deteriorate on you so quickly, and you can be perking right along, and then, disaster hits.
Yeah. So, speaking of Phil and his little decline, let's talk about a couple of bets here. Oh, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry about that. So, this was my picks. I had a 3-pick parlay that you and I actually talked about, which was Bradley, English, and Fleetwood. We liked that grouping. And you got it in my head that they'd all make the cut. And sadly, Fleetwood came in at +9 and didn't make the cut.
Right.
He
was another disappointment, actually.
Yes, but not hugely. I mean, you finished +9, you're 2 off the cut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
But those are the type of courses I've seen him play well in when the conditions are hard, right? So
our round 1 leaders and my top 10s were crap to bed.
I don't really consider those losers,
shots,
though. Right? Yeah.
Those are fun picks. Then I went on a little bit of a winning streak. I mentioned my 2-pick parlay with Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson on the podcast to miss the cut, and I really thought that was a loser for most of the first 2 days, but Phil sadly didn't make the cut, and then became a winner for me. You called Justin Thomas, and I just rode your coattails on that one. You called that from day one. You said whenever it's a tough course, he winds, and he's going to miss the cut. And he missed the cut.
Here's an interesting point about him. He was sitting in his chair at home, I think, on Sunday, and saying that they shouldn't have had to play in the conditions they played in Sunday afternoon. So even when he wasn't part of the tournament, he still felt that it was unfair somehow. And I think there was a bit of unfairness to Sam Burns and the fact that they were playing out of puddles. So I have to agree with Justin a little bit on that.
But I don't understand the ruling on Sam Burns. I understand the rule, which if your feet don't puddle water, you have to play it. You play it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, our podcast is called "Play It Down" for Christ's sake. You play the ball. I get that, but it was a sloped area. on the fairway. It was up against the tall
In a
grass,
puddle.
in a puddle. Yes, his feet weren't puddling, but if he was a left-hander, they probably would have been. But
Right.
he wasn't. He was a right-hander. So I agree that was a horrible rule. Hey, I took the Jersey guy, Ryan McCormick, to make the cut, and he did on the number. So that was a nice little. I got some juice on that one too. I think I was plus 230. So
It's a good play.
I did take the over for the final score, won that one, and you had live golfers on our little side bet at 5.5. Vegas had it at 7.5. So I took advantage of that, and I played the under
7.5.
under 7.5, and I won. And I thought I was going to lose. I would have lose. That's a loss if it goes to plus 8, because then
Right.
Dustin and Phil both
Right.
make the cut.
And on the other hand, if Reed doesn't get the albatross, it goes under.
You win the bet, but you will be caddying for me. So if we look at your bets, which are here, you were not as successful pre-tournament wise. Now, this was obviously we discussed this on Tuesday before you had to put all your bets in. I'm sure you made some.
I made one. I mean, these are all. I was pretty bad on the cuts, other than the Thomas bet, as we've talked about. Again, when you're trying to pick winners in this thing, those are always long shots. I mean, the Keegan Bradley bet to get in the top 10 was probably, he was in the zone of that, probably a couple strokes off at the end.
I finished 38th.
Yeah, so he was in the zone to make that, but obviously you're getting 4-5 to 1.
Yeah, you're getting good
so
odds.
You're getting good odds on that. The Cam Young turned out to be 4th in this thing.
Yeah.
And these guys I wish I'd done Bryson instead of Rahm as the sleeper, because that would have been those were the two we were waffling about. One thing I did do pre-flop that I didn't list on here was I did take the field against the 4 horses, which were Rory and Bryson and Rahm and Scotty. And I bet the field at minus 125, and that one did hit.
Yep.
Did not talk about that per se on the podcast, but that was the other.
You and I talking after,
right?
Whatever. Yeah, you did mention it to me, and I didn't see that in my account, or I probably would have.
I had to search for it. It was not easy to find, but it was one that I felt they would probably have because I'd heard about it, and so that was the only other one I selected. I think we can move on from the bets.
The one thing I do want to bring up is I think I dug up this one stat. I'm going to throw this one. I'm going to throw this one up here. So this was interesting on a couple of fronts. As you can see, the number of players that were under par each round, as you mentioned earlier with the weather on Saturday, a little easier. It was almost the best day for scores to be under par. And on Sunday with the weather and how bad it was not as bad as Friday, but still pretty bad. And JJ Spawn, who did win, was still 2 over on the day.
Yeah, and this really shows, I think, as the course got a little bit tougher on Friday, and then you had some of that rain. I mean, the rain was good and bad, right? Some showers can help the greens, but then it also makes the rough worse. And I think what happened by Sunday is you get the tougher pin placements. Then you had the bad weather, and you had more pressure, and everything just kind of compressed. And the fact that there were so few players under par on Sunday's not surprising. And like I said earlier, I kind of enjoyed some of the players getting it into gear, the Adam Scotts of the world, getting it into gear on Saturday afternoon. Yeah.
And the most shocking stat, I think, is the final group. They were plus 17 on the day.
Yeah.
Scott was plus 9 and Burns was plus 8.
Yep.
So combined plus 17. Obviously, you're not going to win a tournament like that. I also have a little bit about Live. Clearly, the Live golf, Live tournaments are not holding any of these guys back from being prepared for majors. They're doing fine in majors. Feel free to read this if you like. I'm not going to mention it. Just, I'm a big Live fan. I like Live golf. So,
I mean, I would say this about it. What was most impressive here was that the ones you'd expect to maybe have made the cut were not necessarily ones that did.
Sure.
And to have Leishman and Ortiz make the cut was impressive, I thought. And so
you had Hatton and Ortiz tied for the lead with 4 holes.
Yeah, and Hadna was actually somebody that I put on an in-play bet. I did get JJ Spawn at 33-1. Most people are probably not going to believe that I actually put that in, but my brother can opine on it. When we were watching it after we'd left and they had just gotten back out, he had a terrible start. He hit the flag stick on a hole.
He was 5 over for 6 holes.
And he had to hit the flag stick and it rejected. It was crazy.
Hits a ball from 92 yards, hits the flag stick after 1 bounce, and when all said and done, he's 48 yards from the hole.
Crazy. So I took a flyer on him because there was so much carnage going on, and I think 33-1 was probably the best of the number, because then he started to sort of chip away.
Yep.
As the others just collapsed. So that was enough to cover a lot of, actually more than what I bet across all the other bets because of the odds. So.
Nice. And a couple of other facts. This is shots gained throughout the rounds. Obviously, the guy who won gained the most shots in putting, approach shots, and off the green. He gained 4 strokes on the field. Off the tee, though, is actually Rory had the best at 1.56 shots gained upfield. Approach shots were Morikawa at 2.2. Around the green was Crick Kirk, and putting was actually Matt Fitzpatrick. Now, if we look at, I have a great putting stat for you, Tom. You're going to love this. So I was curious about free putts at the U.S. Open. Do you want to know, in the tournaments this year, the high mark for 3 putts at the Sony Open YLA was 167 3 putts. At the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, it was 208. Farmers Insurance at Torrey Pines, 242. And the Houston Open at Memorial Park was 153. Those are the 4 leading into the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open had 378 3 putts or more.
That is crazy.
It is insane.
But you would watch these guys hit a great approach shot on number 13 was a good example, the par 3. And if they were above the hole, you were, and there was a couple of other holes. There was, I think it was might have been number either 14 or 11. But if you came in at the wrong angle, it might have been both of those holes actually. And you were very, very lucky if it didn't drop to not 3-putt. Like a lot of these guys had to putt very, very defensively in order to preserve a 2-putt from distances that were not very far because of the way these greens ran and sloped. So anyway,
it was all about the speed. You had to have the speed down.
Right.
Interesting. There was only the most birdies that were made was 16, which is a relatively low number. Tom Kim, Sam Burns, and I would love to say Lawrence's first name, but I can't. They each had 16 birdies. Eagles are better. There was 10 in total, and none on the weekend, only Thursday and Friday. A couple other interesting tidbits. Fairways hit. The top 5 on fairways hit, only one of those top 5 made the top 10, and that was Robert McIntyre. The top 5 in green regulations, only 2 made the top 10, which was Rahm and Hovland. And the top 5 in putting, only 1 made the top 10, which was Burns.
You had to have a complete game in this thing.
Had to have, and
that's what Spawn had. Yep.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about in-tournament betting. So you kind of mentioned it already a little bit.
Yeah, and I was firing away with small plays at different points. Obviously, when you're watching the tournament, you're not paying a lot of attention to it, sports betting, but like in between rounds or maybe in between, little breaks. And that was, so there was a few guys that I would throw in, but you felt like at some point like you're chasing.
Right.
And Spawn was really chase, right? It was like, look, I got good. I looked for the value. Like if I think there's a guy that's still got a shot, and his odds are floating around, especially when you're there live, you can see it, right? So you're actually, if you really wanted to be betting in play, and that was what you were there for, you get ahead of it by doing it while you're watching it live, but you can only watch so much at a
much,
time, right?
But at least you're seeing other things. You're
Right.
seeing body language. You're seeing
Exactly.
attitude with his caddy, and
The course condition, who's coming along. But for the most part, I think in play gives you some shot to get the value plays in a tournament like this because it can erode so quickly. Like Burns is a great example where he's the leader, and then the next thing you know, he's losing the tournament by 5 strokes, and Spawn's 5 strokes behind, and he's winning the tournament. So anyway, I think these types of courses set you up for a little chance to have in play, but at some point you feel like you're just throwing your money around too.
And that was me. So I lost all my in plays. I did not pick Spawn. I threw money on Hovland. I threw money on Scott. I threw money on Ortiz. I'm loving the money on Ortiz, and if they would give me a cash out,
I had a little bit on him too. He was another one that I put a few dollars on.
I had zero confidence.
We liked him. My brother and I watched him play Saturday. I told you I liked Saturday. Like he looked confident on every shot he hit that we watched. Like he thought he was going to make every putt.
Right.
And I think he continued that, but he just didn't have enough.
Yeah. Well, and if you mentioned Hatton, you had money on Hatton.
Yes.
The 17th hole just
unbelievable.
Ate him for lunch.
Versus Spawn, who drives the green, and Hatton could not get out of the rough.
I did say the best shot of the tournament was the putt.
Might have been the drive.
Is the drive on 17.
Yeah.
The fact that he drives the green and puts that ball. I mean, how wide is it in the fairway where he lands?
I don't.
It can't be more than 12 yards wide.
No, because most guys hit the ball and got
caught in the rough, and he ran it right up that fairway. That was an unreal shot. But yeah, so in play bets, like you said, they kind of eat away at your profit, and they did on me. I ended up pretty much breaking even with my pre-tournament bets, but lost everything on the in plays. So that's.
I mean, one just quick thing about Burns, right? Like the week before, I had him in RBC as an in-play bet at like 29-1, and I hedged a little bit of Fox, but the way Burns lost that, missing that 5-foot putt, now he has another great tournament and comes in and has those rulings and collapses on really the last 7 or 8 holes there, and so now 2 weeks in a row, the poor guy's been just, kind of. I won't say victimized, but he had a great round 4 at RBC, and I thought he's the best putter. You've got him in his stats. He misses the 5-footer. He feels a little bit jinxed right now.
And it's interesting, right? Because you had JJ at the TPC, losing the playoff to McIlroy, obviously on the Sawgrass at 17th hole, that par 3. He puts it into the water, and then he comes back here and gets the job done. So maybe Burns will get the job done. Yeah, who knows? Now his next tournament, his next opportunity is going to be this weekend.
Right.
Everyone except Corey Connors.
Yeah. Let's just talk a minute about Corey Connors. So we watched a lot of Corey Connors on Saturday and Sunday. In particular, on Sunday he was +6, and he's down to +3, or on Saturday, excuse me. He's +6 and he's down to +3. So on Saturday, we didn't watch him Sunday because he withdrew at the end of the day. But on Saturday, he was at +3 after 9. So he was 3 under. He's red. They've got the flags. The scorekeeper's coming around. You're like, oh, this guy's on a heater. He goes off at 10, and then we're watching him on 13, par 3, comes off. He makes a par, and there's a medical guy trailing him. And they're talking, and he's got stuff around his wrist. My brother noticed it, like bandages or something. Apparently on Thursday, he was in the sand bunker, and he hit a sand shot and crashed into a camera. The club crashed into a camera in the bunker. I didn't even know they had bunkers in the sand trap. Cameras in the bunker, rather. And as he swings, apparently it crushes into the camera, and the pressure of the club, into the camera bent his wrist, caused him to have some sort of, he had an injury at that point and continued.
And that's why he was wrapped on Sunday before
Saturday.
And
then he hit a sand shot, I guess, on the 11th hole on Saturday and re-injured it. And
could have been a microphone too, maybe not the camera, but they put something in the sand trap.
Yes. Yeah. I might have misread what it was or whatever.
But either way, they put something in there. Could have been a camera.
Yeah.
But might have been. That's horrible, by the way. Can you imagine You're -3.
on the
You're
day.
having you're
having a
moving
day.
on moving day.
Yep.
I mean, you're now. I think when I saw him at -3, so he was +3 in the tournament. I think he's top 10 at that point. He was because I had him in top 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, maybe I'll win that. And he re-aggravates it and then can't.
Re-aggravates it on the 11th
withdraws.
hole. He manages to finish the day, but he goes all the way to +8. And then Ryan Fox is playing alone on Sunday. And as soon as he was, I went and looked at the score and saw that Connors had withdrawn. So.
Well, so right, so he is number 10 in the FedEx Cup. He is not going to be at the Travelers, which is a signature event, and we can talk about signature events. I know why they did it. Obviously, this was in response to Live. It's the only reason these events exist as signature events, because it's obviously it's a no cut field, and, all that stuff. So this will mark the second signature event and a major in 4 weeks, in a month. And you think these guys are gonna have some fatigue here?
Yeah, I think they could. I think the Travelers is a very highly regarded tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it probably warrants and deserves being a signature event. The timing's unfortunate. And we're going to have our last one. And then you kind of go, you got the Open in the middle of July. But then before you know it, you're going to be into the playoffs. So I guess you could have kind of tried to figure out a way to have that last signature event. It does feel like they've come bunched, and yet there's not that much time left. Right. So I think I'm okay with it. I wrote down some names for this tournament that I think maybe are coming in on the right side of momentum, right? So I'll give you a quick list.
Burns?
It's not Sam Burns, right? I feel guys who really, it's not JJ Spawn, right? They expended a lot of energy, but talking about guys that missed the cut that I think could fit this course. This favors lefties a lot.
Okay.
So I like Patia or Harmon as possible guys.
Patia. I love Patia.
Yeah, those two guys are going to be long shots here.
Ironically, do you know who finished top 5 last year
in this tournament?
Yeah.
I do not.
Patia.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
Okay. I know that Keegan has won this before. Xander's won this before. Poston has been a runner-up. English has been a winner. I kind of like Fleetwood and Cantlay. I'm a little bit sick of betting on those guys because
I know Cantley stopped and won. No, Cantley was top 5 last year too. So a couple of quick facts about Travelers Championship. Obviously, it's in Connecticut. It's a TPC River Highlands, built in 1928. It's a Robert J. Ross designed course. It's a par 70, just over 6,800 yards. The course record is held by Keegan at
and it's in his neck of the woods too. Yep.
He was 257 -23. Last year, Scotty won it at -22, and the top 5 last year was obviously Scotty, Tom Kim, Tom Hogue, Im, Cantley, Finau, Thomas, and Akshay.
Right. So there's a lot of guys, right? And guys that missed the cut also. You got guys like JT, like Cantley, like Fleetwood, who kind of fit this course, and it's going to be an easier course. They only had 2 rounds to deal with at the Open, and they may be a little hungry.
Too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of lay off of him. He kind of burned me last week with his performance, him and Lowry. But
how about Ben Griffin last week? You mentioned Ben Griffin. You are so soft on him. And he's like, I'll show that joke.
I'm just laying away from Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin has been my nemesis because people keep liking him, and I keep being a contrarian on him, and he keeps delivering. So,
and we didn't mention Oberg, him missing
yes.
that was a little surprising. We didn't mention it, but we don't have to go back. But
well, I'll tell you though, we threw a lot of names out there. Here are 2 guys that I think in this tournament you could consider. Spieth, who I feel like has been trajecting up. He's 45-1 on DraftKings. And Cam Young. So Cam Young has been one of those guys. He's looking for his first win. I think he played great last week.
He did.
I don't know whether will take that much.
Body language.
Well, it's hard because he's kind of got a very stoic approach to
I
it.
think he's a little hot.
Yeah. So is your boy Hatton, though, right?
Oh, Hatton's is. I would. They literally should have a drone above Hatton and a microphone. I wish he would do more YouTube videos.
Right? Oh, he'd be awesome on
He
those.
would be so much fun.
He's triggered. He's got.
Did you see the post?
Well, he's a great guy.
Interview?
He beats himself up more than anyone else, right? Yeah.
But did you see the post-round interview with him?
No.
So he finishes round. He's obviously out of the tournament. He's very upset. 17th is crushed him, and you can see it all over his face. Where they're doing the interview, he can see the 18th green. He watches JJ make the putt. And the second that ball goes in, he goes, oh my God, he made that. And just big smile on his face. It was so nice to see and authentic that he was generally
I thought McIntyre kind of did that too.
I completely agree. He's sitting in the building, he just starts clapping.
Yeah.
Game recognizes game. It was a nice little touch. But yes. I do think Cam Young's a little bit of a high. He comes off that way, and I do think that derails him at times. It does.
I think he's better sometimes. Like I had him as a round one lead, or sometimes you pick him as a round one lead. He had a 59 on this course.
Yeah.
So anyway, those guys are guys that I think are. The official plays I would have, I think, myself on this is to think about going with Spieth. I will take a flyer on Cam Young and Batia. I may think about Harmon being a lefty every once in a while he wins a tournament.
I like Brian Harmon.
And those odds are going to be good. Now the odds on guys like Keegan are a little lower at 35. Oberg is 22. Cantley's 22. Fleetwood's 30. I'm more likely to take the guys that are in that 45 to 65 range. Again, Batia, Young, Spieth,
Young.
And maybe even a little bit of JT Poston. We watched him play. He made the cut. He's a very kind of laid back guy. So
yeah, I do. I like Jason Day too.
Yeah. I don't know what he's at. He's another one that's
pretty good 20.
He did.
All right. Yeah. Anything else about Travelers?
Nope.
I have no thoughts on betting on the Travelers. I'm going to dig into that tomorrow.
Okay.
So we will keep your thoughts. I will keep your thoughts in mind when I start looking into it a little bit closer. That is episode 2. Hopefully it's a little bit better than episode 1. Thank you all. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And maybe we'll see you next week.
Yep.
We don't know. We'll check it out.
Thanks, Scooter.
Have a good one, boys. Also, there's the socials. Hit them up.